So let's sort out the clothes and the jewelry. So we'll need to enable those layers over here. And we'll disable bucket mode and go back to our progressive rendering. And I want to zoom in on this area. So let's switch over to our viewport and to our camera view. And just switch to the close-up camera we made before. And we'll just frame this up so we can get a better look at the dress and the jewelry. And we'll need to do a few things here. Firstly, it looks like the bump is also way too intense on the dress, so we'll need to reduce that and probably brighten the dress up a bit as well. Then with the bracelets, I'd like to switch this dull brown looking material with a nice gold shader. And the same with the necklace and the pendant, as well as the earrings. And I'll also give the diamond in here a bit of a red tint, so it complements her lips a bit more, as this and her face are the focal point of the image. We'll also need to fix this intersecting part of the bracelet here. And the necklace also looks like it's floating a bit there, so I'll move that a bit closer to her body. And we'll probably do the same with the dress as well. And we might also need to smooth that out because it looks a little bit bumpy in places, especially here. So let's start over here in the clothes materials, which there is now only one shader. So let's grab that, which, like our skin materials, is also using a bump blender, which has a normal map set to 0 for some reason, and a bump map at negative 0.8 height scale, which I think is a bit too intense. So let's add another 0 in here to decrease the bump effect, which looks a bit better, but I do think it's looking a bit dark. So let's grab the redshift material itself, and because the dress fabric is quite thin, we can use the backlighting translucency setting to allow a bit more light to pass through it. So let's crank this all the way up to 1, which looks good to me. So let's move on to the jewelry materials. And this first one here is for the necklace. And it looks like that's also got a bump blender, which is giving us this striped pattern, which I think is probably fine for this particular material, but I do want it to be a nice shiny gold. So let's grab the RS material, and the easiest way to do that is to just use one of these material presets in here. Let's choose the gold preset, and let's change some of the settings, mainly in the reflection, and giving us this nice golden material on the chain here. So that's sorted. Let's have a look at the next material, the bail here, which is a very basic material without any maps plugged in at all. And I think this is for this part of the pendant here. So that'll need to be gold as well. So let's do the same thing again and use the gold preset. And that's done now. And I think to keep things nice and simple, we can probably just reuse this material on the rest of the jewelry. So everything gets the same gold shader, and we can reduce the amount of materials we have in here, many of which look like duplicates anyway. So let's grab all these black materials, which I presume should actually be gold, but that might have been lost in the import or material conversion. But with those selected, we'll go to Select and select Material Tags or Objects, which if we go back to the Attribute Manager, has selected all the instances of those particular materials. And we can now easily replace them all with our gold bail material by just dragging that into the material slot here. And now all of those parts are now sharing that one gold material, which means we can now get rid of the materials we've just replaced by going to Edit and Delete Unused Materials, which leaves us with just these 4 materials, which is a bit more manageable. So let's just rename this to gold so we don't confuse ourselves later on. And it looks like these 2 specular materials might be duplicates as well. These must be the material for the diamond in the pendant here. So let's just merge these together as well. And we'll take a look at that. And to speed up the render, we'll use the render region over just that part of the necklace. And actually, that's a bit small there. So let's just go back here and zoom in a bit closer and reposition this. So all I want to do to this material is tint it slightly red. So let's go back in there and grab the RS material, and we'll head down to the refraction transmission section and just make the color a nice shade of red. And a little will go a long way here. So I'll just tint this ever so slightly. About there looks good. So we'll close that, disable the render region, and switch back to our main camera. And we'll do another bucket render. And I think those materials are looking good now. So let's fix this bracelet and tidy up the dress geometry and move the necklace a bit closer to her body. So let's disable bucket render, and we might actually just turn this off for now while we work on these. Then we'll go back to the viewport and switch our perspective mode, which is still looking through the perspective of our SSS light that we set up in the previous lesson. So let's go back to the default camera and we'll zoom in here and switch to a wireframe mode. And we'll start by fixing the placement of this bracelet. And currently the access point is a bit off. So let's center that by hitting Shift-C to bring up the commander window. And we'll type axis and grab the axis center tool. And with the default settings here, let's execute that to center the axis to the object, which is going to make repositioning this a bit easier. So I'll just move this up and out to fix that intersecting geometry. So that fixes that. So let's move on to the necklace, which also needs to be repositioned a bit closer to the body. So we'll grab the pendant part first and center the axis on that as well. And so we can see what we're doing, let's hide the dress for a second. And we'll just move this in closer to the skin. And maybe rotate that a tad as well. And about there should be fine. Then we just need to do the same with the chain. So let's grab the necklace and we'll try centering the axis on that as well. And just move this down so it goes through the loop on the pendant. And that should be fine, I think. So let's bring back the dress and zoom back out a bit. And we'll see if we can smooth out these lumpy bits and make the dress conform to the body a bit better. So back in the commander, let's find the smooth sculpting brush. And we'll decrease the strength of the brush to about 20. And we can start smoothing out that mesh, especially over here. And we just need to make sure that we don't smooth this through to the skin like that. So we'll undo that and just do this fairly lightly. Then up here, let's close this for now. And we might be able to see the problem areas a bit easier if we switch the render back on and go back to the main camera. The necklace is definitely looking better now. And this part of the dress is looking nice and smooth. But I just want to push in these parts of the dress so they cling to the body a bit closer. So we could just try smoothing this again. But I think this might be a bit easier to do with another sculpting tool, the grab brush. So we'll grab that. And if we decrease the brush size a bit, that's going to allow us to easily move the mesh closer to the body. And this works just like the move brush in ZBrush. So again, we'll be careful not to push the dress into the body, just a bit closer to get rid of those bits that are sticking out. And we'll do this side as well. And just keep an eye on things over here. And we might need to do the belly as well. And this bit's still flaring out a bit, so we might need to decrease the brush size a bit more and just move this in a bit. And it's nearly there, just a little bit more. And this can be a little bit fiddly. And we'd better fix this bit as well. Okay, let's move on to the belly. And we'll just tuck this in a little bit closer as well. And maybe at the back here as well. And I think that should do it. So let's switch off the render region and we'll do another bucket render. And I think we can call the clothing and jewelry done. You could come in here and fine tune this further to get it super snug on her body, but I think we'll leave it there and move on to the next lesson where we'll sort out her hair.